വനിതാ സമ്മേളനത്തിൽ അടുത്തതായി സംസാരിക്കാൻ എത്തുന്നത് ദിവ്യ എസ് അയ്യർ IAS ആണ്.
തലസ്ഥാനത്തെ വനിതാരത്നം, അക്ഷരാർത്ഥത്തിൽ ബഹുമുഖ പ്രതിഭ, ഡോക്ടറായ IAS ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥ, അതിനൊപ്പം നർത്തകി, ഗായിക, അഭിനേത്രി, എഴുത്തുകാരി, ഇങ്ങനെ നിരവധി വിശേഷണങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരേ സമയം അർഹ. 88ാമത് ആഗോള തീർത്ഥാടനത്തിന്റെ വനിതാ സമ്മേളനത്തിൽ സാദരം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഔദ്യോഗിക ജീവിതവും കുടുംബജീവിതവും പൊതുജീവിതവും ഒരുപോലെ മനോഹരമായി കൈകാര്യം ചെയ്യുന്ന ഡോക്ടർ ദിവ്യയ്ക്ക് ആഗോള തീർത്ഥാടനത്തിന്റെ പ്രൗഢഗംഭീര വേദിയിലേക്ക് സ്നേഹസ്വാഗതം.
I am a woman, phenomenally, a phenomenal woman. That's me, said Maya Angelou, not just for herself, but for each one of us, women on the face of this earth. As a woman, I'm extremely happy, proud, and privileged to be talking to you all on this august occasion of the 88th virtual Sivagiri THEERTHADANAM. At the outset, I express my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers and to the entire Sivagiri Mutt family. Pranam. Thank you so much. I think that being born as a woman has been the most fortunate event in my life. If given a chance, I would definitely want to be a woman again and again and again. Because as Maya Angelou said, every woman is phenomenally a wonderful woman. And to lead this life, which is so colorful by nature for a woman, is simply a joy and an honor. It's been a great opportunity to meet and to be groomed by some phenomenal women in my life too. And every woman I meet day after day has proven to be more phenomenal than the other. In our own little ways, we all are actually extremely strong women. It's just that sometimes we fail to recognize it ourselves. Let me tell you about one phenomenal woman who has probably influenced me the most in my life. Mrs. Subbalakshmi, my grandmother. She is no longer with me in person today, but the spirit and the strength she has helped nurture, not just in me, but in every single woman she has met throughout her life, still lives on in spirit in this world. Born in a rural village in Tirunelveli, she grew up to be a very energetic and smart and intelligent girl for her age, and came out with flying colors in all her examinations in school. And when she reached ESLC, the then school leaving certificate examination, she topped her district, not just her school. But at that juncture, when she had attained puberty, her father restricted her and stopped her from studying further. A visibly disappointed and annoyed Subbalakshmi told her father and fought for her rights to study. Despite her efforts, she could not succeed in her protest and could not continue her higher studies. But she said that I want to register my protest for this unfair action from the part of my father. And she decided to not collect her ESLC certificate even. She decided not to go to that school to her felicitation ceremony that year. That was her way of silently protesting against the injustice meted out to her. In today's age and era, this story might not inspire a lot of people because it is a very muted and it's a silent form of protest as you might see it. But imagine nearly a century ago this happening. And it was not just her. There were hundreds and thousands and millions of girls in our country and across the globe who had to face such restrictions and who probably did not even realize that they were meted out with injustice. So that young age, nearly a century ago, my grandmother realized that it was completely unfair that she was not allowed to pursue her higher education, and she decided to register her protest in the most peaceful manner possible and known to her at that age and era. And she would proudly tell me that story when I was a child and inspire me to study further and to study as much as I wanted. And even when the rest of the society would say that she has finished her MBBS, she has a job, and now she has to get married, and now she has to get settled down, and why let her get into civil services, and that's a very uncertain domain, and age is rolling over, and why you're not getting her married off. All sorts of comments and criticisms get bombarded at you, and I was no exception to that as a woman in this society. When all that happened, as the eldermost member of the family, my grandmother gave her wise counsel to my parents and to me and to everybody who actually bothered about my life at that point of time. She said that let her study, let her achieve her ambitions, let her reach her goal. Do not restrict her in any form. Be it marriage, be it a compulsion to do something else, be it a limitation to travel, whatever be the restriction, lift that off her and let her study. Having that sort of strength and wisdom emanate from your own family is definitely a blessing. And I sincerely hope and pray that there is somebody in each one of your family who can inspire your children to study and to lift off the restrictions from your girls and everybody in your family. Now, this is just a personal experience that I wanted to share with you before I actually start talking about women empowerment, because this is where I'm coming from and this is where I gain my strength from. And obviously this has been passed on to my mom, to my sister, to my to the entire family that I belong to. And as a family where we are 3 women, that's me, my mom and my sister and my dad along with us, we've always been the majority at home. And never have I ever been told that you cannot do this just because you're a woman. And I've seen my dad getting into the kitchen and doing all kinds of work at home, everything that my mom does. And I've seen my mom do everything that my dad does. And this whole sense of solidarity that people express with each other in a family without having watertight compartments within the family, is what actually makes you feel that you are as good or even better than the other gender. And the roots of women empowerment actually starts from the families. And this is the reason I dare to talk about my family every time I talk about women empowerment. The moment we decide to teach our girls not to do something and to fear something, the word empowerment gets slashed down. As Sree Narayana Guru said, get educated, get free, and be fearless. That is the mantra of women empowerment, then, now, and forever. Let me repeat that for you. Get educated, get free, and get fearless. Now, let me continue with my grandmother's example. She could not pursue her further education, but she made sure that education was not something that was received only from schools and through certificates alone. She was one of the most worldly wise persons I have ever met, I would say. And as I said, would offer her wise counsel to everybody who needed it at every point of time. And she was also someone who redefined the notion of women empowerment for me. In modern era, we always talk about women empowerment as if it is completely akin to economic empowerment or financial empowerment. In contrast to the mantra that I told you, in today's era, we think about women empowerment as being able to earn one's own bread and stand on one's own feet. I do agree that it really helps if a woman is economically empowered, but that is not the be-all and end-all of women empowerment. For this was one woman who had never earned a penny by herself all her life. She was not a working woman. She did not own land or any kind of wealth at her hand. Yet, she was one of the strongest women you could have ever met. For she had a voice. And as Melinda Gates rightly says now, a woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman, an empowered woman. And here was this woman who had a voice that was heard and was respected for. And here was a woman who raised 3 children, 3 girl children, who all had girl children themselves. So she had girl children and girl grandchildren in her family. So it was daughters and granddaughters all around her. And she couldn't be prouder. And instilled that spirit of fierce strength and freedom in each one of us. And here was a woman who had the choice and who had the independence to choose the path of her life and choose the destiny. The ability to decide your own fate, that is true empowerment. Get educated, get free, and be fearless, as was said, is also definitely buttressed by these facts. To have a voice of your own, to be able to make your own decisions, and to shape your destiny. If we can do that, we are definitely the empowered women that we all wish to be. Now, how do we reach that goal? How do we walk that path? That is what we all keep thinking about, worrying about, debating about, reading about, writing about. And yet, I wonder if we have actually found the right path to crack it open. Probably there is no right path. Probably there is no single right path towards women empowerment. Because it is this collective strength that we impart to each other as women that is actually going to emancipate us and to make us all feel empowered. The notion of empowerment, as I mentioned earlier, is not only about financial independence. It is about having your own voice. It is also about understanding your own strength. It is about discovering your own strength. The notion of women empowerment is not about giving strength to women. It is not about giving that additional support to women. It is not about creating any artificial space for women. It is not only about reserving a certain percentage of seats for women, but it is about changing the perception of strength by the society. For women are already strong. Women are already empowered. I had the story of my grandmother to tell you. I'm sure each one of you have seen such women in your life. Let us share these stories with each other. Let us share these stories of how different women show their strength in the time of crisis, in the face of disasters, in the face of struggles, in the face of suffering, and how these women grow with each instance in their lives, and how our women lend a supporting hand to everybody around them in their family and to the community as a whole. It's important that we share these stories with each other, for that is the beginning of the change in perception of women's strength in our society. Unfortunately, we have a very prejudiced notion of definition of strength. We think that strength is defined by manliness or by manhood or by physical strength or by anything that a man does. And trying to match up to the man's domain, trying to match up to activities that traditionally a man does, is often deemed as a strong woman, or is often deemed as strength in a woman. Sadly so, this is not going to lead us anywhere. For a woman can always do everything that a man does, probably. But it will be very difficult for a man to do everything that a woman does. And nobody judges a man for that. But we as a society judge a woman for doing and not doing activities that a man traditionally does. So this whole notion of a strong woman itself is very skewed in my eyes. It's important to realize that a woman's strength lies elsewhere. The expression of a woman's strength may be or may not be the same as the expression of a man's strength, and it need not be the same at all. So it is our perception of a strong woman, it is our perception of strength, it is our perception of empowerment that really needs to change, rather than trying to change the way women live, or trying to change the way a woman dresses up, or trying to change the way a woman works. It is not essential that a woman has to prove her ability in a traditional male den. The strength of a woman lies completely in her independence and in her voice and in her ability to shape her destiny. As long as we give the opportunity for her to soar high into the skies and be the wind under her wings, we will definitely be able to see a strong woman emerging out of us. But if we continue to move in the path where we see a comparison and a constant judgment of everything that a woman does based on male parameters, we are never going to achieve that goal. So here is to everybody who understands and probably misunderstands feminism. Feminism is nothing but anyone who recognizes the fullness of humanity and equality of all genders, said Gloria Steinem. And I completely agree with her on that. It is not only about equality of both the genders that we are talking about, it is also about the full humanity. It is about the worth of the entire humanity. It is about the respect and the worth of a human being that we are talking about when we talk about feminism. And the moment we hear the term, our minds automatically jumps into another sphere, which is hating men. And let me tell you, for the record, feminism has got nothing to do with man hating. Feminism is only about recognition of the strength in women and understanding the worth of the entire humanity, man or woman for that matter. If we can keep our heads on our shoulders on this aspect, definitely we can go a long way in feminism as well as in women empowerment. Now, as I pointed out earlier on, the roots of all of this actually lies in our families. One of my favorite author and feminist of modern times, Chimamanda Adichie, a Nigerian writer, speaks about feminism in a fashion that's so simple and so lucid and clear as a day. Let me try and paraphrase some of her ideas to you. She especially talks about how families and how nurturing of children contributes towards women empowerment and towards gender equality in our society. As a mother of an adorable 1.5-year-old son, I completely understand where she is coming from when she talks about raising children and about making sure that we don't start putting the divides and the limitations and restrictions around our girl children or around our boy children for that matter. When I spoke about restrictions that my grandmother faced and every other child, every other daughter in our family faces, there is also the implied aspect of our boys or our sons who do not probably receive those limitations. But now when I raise my son, I realize that it's probably not just limitations, it's also about exposure, it is also about prejudices, it is also about preconceived notions that we thrust upon our children, which they grow up with. Let me explain what Adichie is talking about and what I'm talking about. She says, do not ask our girls to shrink their worlds. Do not ask them to grow smaller in their ambitions. We often tell our girls to be ambitious, but not be too ambitious, because if you grow too much, if you become too successful, you will be too difficult for a family to be contained. We tell our girls, we teach our girls to aspire for marriage, but we do not ask our sons to aspire for marriage. When we raise our daughters, we put marriage right in front of them as the ultimate goal that she can achieve, and motherhood as probably the only goal in her life, and family as her world. Yes, definitely, I'm married, I'm a mother, I have a family. I value these as anything else in my life. I value these more than anything else in my life, but that does not mean that my world or my ambitions are contained in any of these. And that's exactly what she's talking about. We do not raise our sons asking them to aspire for marriage or that parenthood or fatherhood is the ultimate goal in their lives. We teach our sons to think about careers, to become big CEOs, to become prime ministers, to fly an airplane, to become Sachin Tendulkar. Their ambitions are limitless and we encourage that. But when it comes to girls, admit it or not, we definitely try and bind them down, citing flimsy reasons as these. And nobody would like their child to be limited, or nobody would like to clip the wings of their children knowingly. But unknowingly, we have been clipping the wings of many of our daughters. And this is what I want you to realize today. If there is one takeaway from this talk, this is what it would be. Go back and start understanding if you have been clipping the wings of your daughter in one way or the other. Go back and understand if you have been injecting some preconceived notion of yours into your sons and your daughters, telling them that this is the only field where you can have ambitions in, or this is a field where your ambitions should be limited. Are you grabbing their independence? Are you grabbing their choice to soar high into the skies? Let me give you an example. I was at a friend's house a year or two ago, a very well-known family to us. There was a little girl, all of 10 years of age in that house, whom I got very pally with, and we were chatting up as we were munching away the snacks that were served to us. And soon after, the grandmother in the family told the little girl, "Please take the plates back to the kitchen and keep it there." The plates in which the snacks were served to us. That was perfectly fine. I do believe that both girls as well as boys should be trained in, life skills in the most interesting fashion possible, and probably in subtle ways as these. So I was okay with that. But there was a statement that followed, which I was definitely not fine with. She said, girls are supposed to be trained in household chores from this age itself. And I, being me, definitely could not stay on a muted mode on listening to that statement. So very politely but firmly, I told them the plates would definitely not know if a girl or a boy is lifting them up, right? Both girls and boys have to learn life skills and have to do household chores in ways as these. You need not tell or teach your little girl that household chores belong to girls alone, or that when she grows up, she has to confine herself to the household, or that the domesticity of her world, of her life, is the be-all and end-all of her life. Now, many might think that I might be overreacting, but trust me, these are the little ways in which you can contribute towards women empowerment. So when you're talking to little children, make sure that you're not injecting such preconceived notions into them. I love to give cooking utensils, little pretend play sets, kitchen play sets to my son. When many have actually asked me, why would you let him play with cooking utensils for so long? Yes, he loves vehicles on one side. On the other side, he equally loves flowers and dolls and cooking utensils as well. Now, there's nothing wrong in that. I want him to get exposed to both sides. I want him to get exposed to as much as possible, whatever is within my limits. I'm not trying to say that we are ideal in any angle. We are all growing up as parents. And I think motherhood definitely has been the most defining moment in my life. And when I see the world through the eyes of my little son, I also see how parenting actually helps us grow as human beings. So when I talked about Adichie, this is another very interesting book that she has written, which is called A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions. It's called Dear Ijavle. So it's a little book wherein she just gives 15 suggestions regarding raising our daughters to be feminists. And as I said, I would actually extrapolate it and say that we have to raise our children, not just daughters, but also our sons, as feminists. And one of the things that she mentions in that is about this, as to how we have categorized everything right from infanthood. Blue for boys, pink for girls, Barbies and dolls and kitchen play sets for girls, trucks and JCBs and cars and guns for boys. There's a clear division right from the moment a child enters this world. And the divide starts from there. Once you have trained your children in such watertight compartments, how do you expect them to grow up to create a fair and just and equal, beautiful society? It's next to impossible, right? So it's important that it all starts from home. It's important that we take an effort to make sure that our children are not injected with these preconceived notions about gender. This gender bias runs very deeply in our roots, in fact. Unless we are conscious about it and unless we make an intentional effort to iron out these differences and make sure that we expose our children to everything that is good for them, they would never understand that the other gender is as good or is as beautiful as they are. So I'm doing just my little bit in trying to expose my little son to everything that he enjoys doing. This is just my little effort, and probably I would say the most valuable effort towards women empowerment in this society. And I sincerely hope and pray that all parents try to ensure that their children are not fed with ounces of gender bias day in and day out in their childhood. And I sincerely hope that our schools provide opportunities for both girls and boys in a fashion that would enable them to interact seamlessly and establish an equilibrium between the two genders. In fact, I think it's time that we move on from even the concept of equality. For it is not always 50-50. In various spheres of life, as we live our lives, we understand that in various spheres of lives and in various instances that life throws at you, sometimes it might be a 60-40, sometimes it might be a 30-70, sometimes it might be a 90-10. It's all right as long as that equilibrium is there, as long as there is a constant interaction between the two genders. I'm sure we've all learned in chemistry what a reaction in equilibrium is, or how a system is in equilibrium. There is always a constant reaction between, a constant exchange between the two elements, which helps stabilize that system. And that is exactly what we want in our society as far as genders are concerned. We need to achieve that state of equilibrium, a gender equilibrium, wherein there is constant interaction and constant communication amongst all the genders, wherein we can accommodate the excesses and the flaws in each gender with the other without making one feel superior and one feel inferior. For I think it is humanly impossible to have exactly equal two human beings on this earth, leave alone a man and a woman. Even between two men or between two women, I'm sure it is extremely difficult to achieve complete equality. So it is the sense of equilibrium that we need, wherein we support each other and we absorb the excesses from each other and we compensate for the flaws or the limitations in each other. And in this society, where we have gender equilibrium, we would dare not have to fight for our rights. We would dare not have to fight for our space in the society. And last but not the least, we would dare not have to suffer at the hands of the other gender. I have not really touched upon a very grave area in this whole sphere of women empowerment, which is about abuse and violence against women, which takes for another lecture altogether. But let me just conclude with one little anecdote from my life. I'm sure that all of us women have faced abuse of some sort in our lives, whether it be at home, whether it be just gender discrimination at our workplace, whether it be in public spaces, whether it be violence at home. Now there's this whole range, whole spectrum of events that could happen when we talk about abuse. I just want to leave you with the example of probably the the most ignored or the least harmful, as they say, as they claim. I remember this time when I was a little child and we were traveling in a public transport system. We were traveling in a bus, and there was a man who was standing behind us, who was trying to nudge my mother, who was trying to touch her. And I remember my mom moving forward in order to escape his touch for the first time. And the second time, he again tried to nudge her. And then she quietly moved ahead again. And once more came the nudge. And the next I heard was an ouch from this man, a yelling from a man. I was wondering what had happened. It was not my mother who made the noise. It was a man who tried to nudge her. Now, she did something which a lot of women, I think, in this part of the world do, which is she took a safety pin which she had hung on her chain. She took a safety pin, and the moment this man came to touch her, she poked that onto his finger. And due to this unexpected retort from my mom, he started yelling, and then he got down at the next stop. Now, I don't know if this is the right approach. I'm not trying to say that this is the way to protect yourself or this is the way to react, but this was the best my mom could do at that point of time with the resources that she had at hand. Now, I'm sure if you ask 100 women, we would get 100 different reactions. And if you ask 100 men, there would be 100 different responses to this. But as a child, I was awestruck at my mom's courage. And I remember us as children being instilled that courage to stand up for ourselves and to protect ourselves in the face of any attack on our womanhood. It is rather unfortunate that we have to teach our children to protect themselves from any form of attack. But in today's circumstances, that is not something we can risk. So until we achieve that dream world of gender equilibrium, it is equally important to teach our daughters, to teach our children how to safeguard oneself from any form of gender discrimination or gender abuse or gender-based attacks or violence that they or anybody around them might have to face in this big bad world outside there. So, let me repeat. Get educated, get free, and be fearless. And also make sure that you have a voice. Make sure that you shape your destiny, and make sure that you can stand up for yourself in this world. For it's equally important for us to be strong and secure. So I sincerely wish that all of us can contribute in our own little ways towards achieving gender equilibrium in this world, and that we create a beautiful future for our children. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And to all the men and women and others who are facing this world under this COVID-19 pandemic, stay safe. We are all there for each other, and we shall all continue to be there for each other, even while maintaining social distancing and all the other precautionary measures that is mandated today. The very fact that we are meeting today through this virtual Sivagiri THEERTHADANAM says that we have adapted quickly to the changing circumstances around us. And let us continue to be the voice of the voiceless, to hold that beacon of hope for the hopeless around us. As long as we can be there for each other, there is nothing stopping us from achieving that dream of gender equilibrium. Thank you so much. Namaste.